Classic Hollywood was mysterious. There were many hidden stories we did not know. Many actors from that era were closeted, and we came to know about them too later, sometimes after they died. We are going to talk about the closet cases from old Hollywood that will leave you totally speechless. Some of them are those you may never thought of. Liberace. Liberace was one of the most flamboyant entertainers of the 20th century, known for his elaborate costumes, candelabra-adorned pianos, and incredible showmanship. Despite being one of the highest-paid entertainers in the world during his peak, Liberace worked hard to maintain a carefully crafted public image. He famously sued publications that suggested he wasn't interested in women, winning settlements in both the UK and US. However, several of his former companions later shared stories about their time with him, including Scott Thorson, who lived with Liberace for 5 years, and later wrote a book about their relationship that became the basis for the film Behind the Candelabra. Katherine Hepburn, iconic Hollywood actress and Academy Award-winning performer in films such as Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The Lion in Winter, and On Golden Pond, Katherine Hepburn reportedly had an insatiable appetite for women. We are not saying that. It was written by former pimp and full-service author Scotty Bowers. Bowers claimed a typical request from Hepburn would sound something like this. When you get a chance, do you think you can find a nice young dark-haired girl for me? Over the course of 5 decades, Bowers and Hepburn became good friends, and Bowers claimed to have procured over 150 different women and suggested that Hepburn was rather fickle and would only see each girl once or twice and then tire of them. Despite this, Hepburn's studio pushed the narrative that her and fellow co-star Spencer Tracy were in a relationship, although according to account, this was instead a very solid friendship. Screenwriter and gay rights activist Larry Kramer stated of the famous couple, Hepburn and Tracy were both gay. They were publicly paired together by the studio. Everyone in Hollywood knows this is true. Of course, I haven't seen it printed anywhere. Rock Hudson, Hollywood heartthrob and incredible actor, Rock Hudson is one of the most iconic gay celebrities from Hollywood's golden era. Thanks to his agent, Henry Wilson, Hudson's homosexuality was kept a secret for most of his life, and his relationships were kept out of the public eye. When Confidential threatened to expose Hudson's sexuality, as well as arranging for Hudson to marry his secretary, Phyllis Gates, to help combat rumors. Hudson was married for 3 years. In 1984, Hudson was diagnosed with HIV, and although Wilson tried to hide the illness, the news eventually came out and Hudson became the first celebrity to have AIDS. Hudson passed away the following year. Marlene Dietrich. A product of the art-centric Weimar culture in early 20th century Germany, Marlene Dietrich lived freely, fearlessly, and was well known for her sexuality. Well known for her masculine dress sense, she regularly donned pants and tuxes on the silver screen at a time when it was unfashionable to do so and changed the way women thought about pants forever. She was also unapologetic about her love for both men and women. There are reports of Dietrich having relationships with Kay Francis, Edith Piaf, and Greta Garbo. Dietrich's daughter Maria Riva opened up more about her mother's gender identity in a 1992 tell-all book. Though the star remained married to film producer Rudolf Sieber, Riva admitted her mother had affairs with men as a way of controlling and manipulating them. And instead, her affairs with women were allegedly much more satisfying for her, though critics were hesitant to label Dietrich as bisexual. As film critic Kenneth Tynan once remarked, Greta Garbo, once considered the most beautiful woman in the world, Greta Garbo was legendary for her expressive face, her need for privacy, and her sexuality. Writer Diana McClellan researched for her book and found that Garbo's life had passionate relationships with mostly women, excluding her well-publicized attachment to John Gilbert. Some of the women she wrote love letters to during her life included Swedish actress Mimi Pollock and writer Mercedes da Costa. McClellan also unearthed evidence that suggested Garbo had a relationship with Marlene Dietrich when Garbo was 19. Cesar Romero, Cuban-American actor, was impeccably handsome and tall, making him quite the Hollywood leading man. Romero appeared on the silver screen alongside stars such as Marlene Dietrich and Carole Lombard, and he was also a lifelong best friend to actress Joan Crawford. He is best known for his legendary role of playing the Joker in the original film version of Batman in 1966. To those closest to Romero, such as his friends and colleagues within the industry, Romero was open and out about his gender identity. Although publicly, he kept his gender identity a secret for the entirety of his career. Cary Grant, Hollywood heartthrob Cary Grant, was, according to the recent documentary Women He's Undressed, bisexual and had relationships with both men and women. Notably, Grant had a long-term on and off again relationship spanning 3 decades with Australian costume designer Ori Kelly. The documentary and Ori Kelly's memoir on which it's based paints Grant as a former vaudeville star who was forced to repress his gender identity in order to conform to the homophobic Hollywood studio system. Kelly was reported as growing increasingly resentful of Grant's predilection for blonde women. Their relationship became allegedly abusive at times and was said to be a combination of self-loathing and confusion was manifested in a punch-up. Catherine Thompson, the writer of the documentary, told the Post. She claimed Grant even threw Kelly out of a moving vehicle during a particularly heated moment. Ramon Navaro, Mexican-American actor, was often considered the rival to hot icon Rudolph Valentino, but after Valentino's death in 1926, however, his immense success didn't last long as MGM chose not to renew his contract in 1935, and Novarro struggled to find roles on his own after this. Novarro struggled to accept his homosexuality due to his Roman Catholic upbringing, but he did have several relationships with men at the height of his career. Unfortunately, in 1968, brothers Paul and Tom Ferguson called Navaro. It's alleged they were from a different entertainment company, but this is only rumored. Upon entering his house, Navaro was tortured and murdered for his money. Navaro's gender identity became sensationalized for the public after his death made national news. Navaro's death became a bigger part of popular culture than his films for younger audiences. But Mata Hari, the 1925 version of Ben-Hur, and more remain classics, partly because of his performances. Patsy Kelly. Although not a household name, Patsy Kelly can be recognized from her roles playing the sassy best friend in 1930s comedies like The Girl from Missouri and Merrily We Live. Kelly was very open and explicitly talked about her homosexuality during her career from the 30s to the 40s. She told magazines that she was a dyke, living with her girlfriend and never planned on marriage. Kelly also had a relationship with actress Tallulah Bankhead, who was very open about her attraction to both men and women. Throughout her film career, Kelly remained in a supporting role, which was likely due to her openness to her gender identity. But today she has a strong following in the cult classic movie community and is one of the strongest examples of a celebrity being openly homosexual in early Hollywood. Ruby Dandridge. Although not as well known as her daughter, Dorothy Dandridge, Ruby still appeared, although unfortunately uncredited, in huge films such as King Kong, Cabin in the Sky, Dead Reckoning, and The War Against Mrs. Hadley. Ruby Dandridge eventually left her husband after she had her 2 daughters and moved in with Geneva Williams. Writers of the time considered Williams her lifelong companion. Williams helped raise the daughters while Dandridge began acting when the family moved to Los Angeles in 1929. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift brought an intense sensitivity to his roles that revolutionized method acting in Hollywood. His performances in films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity showed a depth of emotion that connected deeply with audiences. While his personal struggles were often attributed to his perfectionism and method acting approach, those who knew him understood there was more to his story. Clift challenged Hollywood's traditional masculine stereotypes, bringing a vulnerability to his roles that was groundbreaking for his time. His close friend Elizabeth Taylor became one of his strongest supporters, standing by him throughout his career, especially after a car accident in 1956 that changed his life dramatically. Paul Lynde. Paul Lynde became a household name through his role as Uncle Arthur on Bewitched and his legendary center square position on Hollywood Squares. His quick wit and distinctive voice made him one of television's most memorable personalities during the 1960s and 70s. While his humor often pushed boundaries for the era, particularly on Hollywood Squares, he maintained a careful balance between his public persona and private life. His comedic talent allowed him to create a unique space for himself in entertainment, becoming one of the most popular television personalities of his time while working within the constraints of the era. Dick Sargent. Dick Sargent stepped into one of television's most challenging roles when he became the second Darren Stevens on Bewitched. Taking over such a well-established character required tremendous skill, and Sargent brought his own subtle charm to the role. Despite the pressures of replacing a beloved actor, he managed to make the character his own. Later in life, Sargent became an advocate for various causes, using his platform to help others. His journey from a 1960s sitcom star to an outspoken advocate in the 1990s reflected the changing times in American society. Robert Reed. Robert Reed created one of television's most beloved fathers as Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch. His portrayal of the ideal family man resonated with audiences nationwide, making him a symbol of American fatherhood in the 1970s. Behind the scenes, Reed was also a serious actor who had trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts and often suggested script improvements to maintain the show's quality. His dedication to craft showed in every episode, even as he struggled with the sometimes silly nature of the sitcom format. Reed's legacy lives on through endless reruns of the show that made him famous. Raymond Burr. Raymond Burr dominated television screens as Perry Mason and later as Ironside, creating two of the most memorable characters in TV history. His commanding presence and deep voice made him the perfect choice to play these authoritative figures. What many viewers didn't know was that Burr shared his life with Robert Benovitz for over 30 years. They worked together on multiple projects, including developing and maintaining a successful orchid business and vineyard. Burr kept his private life separate from his public persona, focusing on his work and philanthropic efforts. George Takei. George Takei piloted the USS Enterprise as Mr. Sulu, breaking barriers as one of the first Asian American actors in a leading television role. After Star Trek, he became increasingly involved in social justice causes, speaking out about his childhood experience in Japanese internment camps. In recent years, he has become a social media phenomenon, using his platform to advocate for causes he believes in with his signature humor and wit. His journey from science fiction icon to social activist demonstrates how one person's voice can make a difference across generations. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando revolutionized acting with his performances in films like On the Waterfront and The Godfather. While his romantic relationships with women were well documented, his deep friendship with actor Wally Cox remained one of the most important relationships in his life. When Cox passed away, Brando kept his ashes and reportedly spoke to them daily. This profound connection revealed a different side to the actor, known for playing tough, masculine characters. Brando's complexity as a person often matched the depth he brought to his iconic roles. Randolph Scott. Randolph Scott and Cary Grant shared a beach house in Malibu during their early days in Hollywood, forming a close bond that lasted throughout their lives. Scott went on to become one of Hollywood's most successful Western stars, known for his rugged portrayals of cowboys and lawmen. His career spanned several decades, during which he made over 100 films, with more than 60 of them being Westerns. While their early living arrangement raised eyebrows in later years, both men maintained successful careers during Hollywood's golden age. Dirk Bogarde. Dirk Bogarde began his career as a matinee idol in British cinema, starring in the popular Doctor in the House series. However, he later chose to take on more challenging roles, particularly in art house films that often dealt with complex social issues. His performance in Victim, 1961, was groundbreaking as one of the first sympathetic portrayals of its kind in British cinema. Bogarde's transition from popular entertainment to serious drama showed his dedication to using his art to address important social issues, even when doing so risked his commercial success. James Dean. James Dean's brief but brilliant career left an indelible mark on cinema history through films like Rebel Without a Cause and East of Eden. While Dean dated women publicly, several biographers and contemporaries have discussed his relationships with men, including his allegedly complex relationship with actor Bill Bast, who later became his biographer. Bast wrote about their intimate relationship in 2 books, though he waited until decades after Dean's death to do so. Additionally, Dean's close friendship with actor Sal Mano sparked numerous rumors, particularly given the subtle undertones in their scenes together in Rebel Without a Cause. Dean's early death at age 24 left many questions unanswered, but his impact on discussions about gender and sexuality in Hollywood remains significant. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck was one of Hollywood's most versatile actresses, known for both dramatic roles and comedic performances in films like Double Indemnity and Ball of Fire. Despite her marriages to men, including actor Robert Taylor, rumors about Stanwyck's sexuality persisted throughout her career. These were fueled by her close friendships with actresses like Tallulah Bankhead and her tendency to wear masculine clothing both on and off screen. Author Axel Madsen's unauthorized biography, Stanwyck, suggested she had relationships with women, particularly during her early years in Hollywood. Her marriage to Taylor was widely believed to be a lavender marriage, arranged by the studio, though Stanwyck never publicly addressed these speculations. Clifton Webb. Clifton Webb was known for his sophisticated, acerbic performances in films like Laura and The Razor's Edge. He lived with his mother, Maybelle, until her death at age 91, leading to much speculation about his personal life. While Webb never publicly discussed his sexuality, it was an open secret in Hollywood circles. Director Otto Preminger reportedly cast him in Laura, despite studio objections about his mannerisms, arguing that his sophisticated persona would work perfectly for the role of Waldo Lederer. Webb's career flourished despite the rumors, perhaps because his polished, cultured image aligned with the characters he often portrayed. Agnes Morehead, best known to later generations as Endora on Bewitched. Agnes Morehead had a distinguished career in film, including roles in Citizen Kane and The Magnificent Ambersons. While married several times to men, rumors about her sexuality circulated throughout her career, particularly regarding her close friendship with actress Debbie Reynolds. Author Joe McGinnis claimed that Morehead was known within the industry to be gay, though she never publicly acknowledged this. Her Bewitched co-star, Paul Lynde, allegedly made references to her sexuality in private conversations, though these claims remain unverified. Jean Arthur. Jean Arthur's distinctive voice and precise comic timing made her one of the most beloved actresses of the 1930s and 1940s. Despite her success in romantic comedies opposite leading men like Gary Cooper and Cary Grant, Arthur was intensely private and reportedly uncomfortable with Hollywood's social scene. After retiring from film, she lived for many years with writer Mercedes D'Acosta's former partner. While Arthur never discussed her personal life publicly, several biographers have suggested that her reclusiveness and close female friendships indicated a hidden aspect of her identity. Her contemporary, director George Stevens, once remarked that Arthur's intensely private nature stemmed from her desire to protect herself in an era when personal lives were strictly controlled by studio systems. Billy Haynes, William Billy. Haynes has one of the most remarkable stories from Golden Age Hollywood. A successful leading man in silent films and early talkies, rather than comply, Haynes chose love over his career, refusing to leave Shields. After leaving acting, Haynes reinvented himself as an interior designer, becoming one of Hollywood's most sought-after decorators, with clients including Joan Crawford, Gloria Swanson, and even Nancy and Ronald Reagan. His successful second career proved that while the studios might have rejected him, Hollywood society still valued his talents. Sal Mano. Sal Mano's portrayal of Plato in Rebel Without a Cause earned him an Academy Award nomination and established him as one of Hollywood's most promising young actors. His character's subtle attraction to James Dean's Jim Stark was groundbreaking for the era, though few openly discussed it at the time. As Mano grew older, he became increasingly open about his identity, making him one of the first actors to come out to the press in the 1960s. His career suffered afterward, but he continued working in theater and became an early advocate for representation in Hollywood. His relationship with actor Courtney Burr III lasted until Mano's tragic murder in 1976. The character Plato is now considered one of cinema's earliest sympathetic portrayals of queer youth. Spring Byington. While Spring Byington charmed audiences as the quintessential mother figure in films like Little Women, 1933, and the television series December Bride, her private life generated considerable speculation within Hollywood circles. For over 25 years, she shared her home with actress Marjorie Main. While both women maintained they were simply close friends sharing expenses, their living arrangement lasted until Byington's death in 1971. The press often explained away their cohabitation as two practical actresses splitting costs, but those who knew them described a deeper bond. Their story exemplifies how some actors found ways to live authentically while maintaining public careers during the restrictive studio era. Nancy Kulp. Most famous for her role as Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, Nancy Kulp brought dignity and unexpected depth to what could have been a one-dimensional character. While she never discussed her personal life during her active career, the subject emerged dramatically during her 1989 run for political office in Pennsylvania, when her former co-star, Buddy Ebsen, campaigned against her, leading to public speculation about her private life. Kulp taught at Juniata College, where she became known for her candid discussions about the challenges faced by actors who didn't fit Hollywood's conventional molds. Her later years were marked by increasingly open discussions about identity and representation in the entertainment industry. Alan Suze, best known for his flamboyant performances on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, Alan Suze turned his camp persona into a successful career at a time when openly gay performers were rare on television. While never explicitly coming out during the show's run, Suze played with audience expectations through his outrageous characters in Double Entendre. In his 2011 obituary, it was very difficult to be gay in the late 60s. Suze found a way to express himself through comedy, using humor to push boundaries while maintaining plausible deniability. His performances on Laugh-In are now considered groundbreaking for their subtle subversion of gender norms and sexuality stereotypes.